Some major news out of Allen Park today, and it's good news.
You are Locked On Lions, your daily Detroit Lions podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, everybody? Matt Derry with you. It is a Tuesday edition of Locked On Lions right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day on a Tuesday, January 30th and a Wednesday, January 31st. Thanks for making us your first listen, checking us out wherever you get your podcasts. Shout out to our everydayers out there. I met a couple today that love the podcast, watch us, appreciate that. The Sinishtai family, Steven Sinishtai, Daniel Sinishtai. Shout out to the Sinishtai's East Side. Checking us out right here on Locked On Lions. Please subscribe to our Locked On Lions YouTube channel where you can watch us each and every day. We are brought to you today by our friends at FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. Another one of our everydayers, Jody Batdorf. Happy 69th birthday, my brother. We love Jody Turner, Mama, and the whole crew down in H-Town. All right, coming up on the show today, Austin Mock is going to join us from theathletic.com. Very good NFL writer. I've always liked Austin. Never had him on the show. We're going to have Austin on to talk about the Dan Campbell decision-making, the Ben Johnson news, which I'm going to get to momentarily. That's the big story. I just ruined the surprise for those of you that I'm sure everybody knows now. But how about this? All right, comes out today. First by Tom Pelissero of NFL Network, Ben Johnson has told the Washington Commanders, y'all coming into town to interview me? I'm good. I'm saying no. Told the Seahawks, I'm out. He's staying with the Lions. Of course, speculation started running rampant. And I know what a lot of you are going to say. When's Matt Derry going to apologize? I was told weeks ago he was the Commanders' number one choice. Washington waited a long time. Now, and Washington was waiting for Ben Johnson. And yeah, they were going to interview Aaron Glenn. They were going to interview Mike McDonald, Anthony Weaver. I get that. But Ben Johnson had been their number one target for weeks. And there's a lot of speculation. Ben Johnson wants to stay, wants to win a Super Bowl. That's what Adam Schefter put out on Twitter earlier today. Quote, Lions offensive coordinator Ben Johnson has 2 years remaining on his contract with Detroit. His deal was not adjusted to stay per league source, proving that money is not Johnson's biggest motivation. The Lions could opt to adjust the contract down the line, but as Schefter writes, it's not the reason that Johnson returned to Detroit today. Johnson is loyal. There were other reports that he wanted to win a Super Bowl, and that's why he stayed. Now, if you recall, Josina Anderson from CBS reported months ago, Ben Johnson's agent was asking for $10 million at least to get started. Maybe the Commanders, maybe the Seahawks weren't going to go there. All right, lots of intrigue here. Maybe he waits until next year when, I don't know, the likes of Jeffrey Lurie and Jerry Jones, if Philly falls flat, if Dallas is again. Maybe Jera and Jeff are willing to pay Ben Johnson what he wants. But right now, he's staying. And according to reports, he's not getting a raise, which I have a hard time believing, but hey. But the news is good for the Lions. To keep your offensive coordinator, arguably the best OC in the league, to keep a chemistry with your staff, to bring Ben Johnson back for a fourth year, to get a chance to work with Jared Goff for a third year as OC is awesome. All right, this is great news. No one thought Ben Johnson was staying. Now, again, he's playing with house money a little bit, Ben Johnson. He's gambling. Because if you recall, remember after 2014, Terrell Austin was the Lions D coordinator and everybody was interviewing TA. And Terrell Austin decided to stay with the Lions. Terrell Austin really never got another chance after that. He's had a few interviews here and there, but he was a hot commodity after 2014 when the Lions finished second in defense, only behind Seattle, and were robbed in that playoff game down in Dallas. So this is some big news, pretty cool stuff. Ben Johnson staying. If you're not happy about it, and I know there's a couple of Lions fans out there that'll remain nameless, Mike Vanderpool, who aren't huge Ben Johnson fans. But look, the chemistry this offense has, Goff and him, the play calling, guys getting better. For Ben Johnson to come back, I think is absolutely awesome for the Lions. That's huge news, huge positive, and a feather in their cap. Meantime, Schefter also reporting today that Lions passing game coordinator Tanner Engstrand will interview for the Bucs OC job. He's already interviewed for the Patriots vacant offensive coordinator job. So Tanner Engstrand getting a look. We know Antoine Randall L interviewed with the Bucs. Today, Aaron Glenn interviewed for the Commanders. They came to Detroit and Allen Park, braved the snow that we had today, and interviewed Glenn. So maybe AG. This could be crazy. AG leaves and Ben stays. No one thought that a few weeks ago, but that is a possibility. Again, I've also heard Mike McDonald is heading to Seattle, but we'll see. I was wrong about Ben Johnson. That is for sure. Quickly, before we get to Austin Mock from theathletic.com, NFL writer, last night Dan Campbell met with the beat writers and had a press conference after we had recorded the show. And one thing he talked about was the third down call late in the game with a minute to go when the Lions elected to run on 3rd and goal, didn't get it, and had to use one of their timeouts. And that was a brutal call. And it was, something that Dan Campbell said, I probably should have thrown it. But Campbell also said they thought they had a walk-in touchdown on the running play to Montgomery going over right guard, but a block was missed. And Campbell didn't call out anybody specifically. Go back and watch the tape. Jameson Williams just whiffs. He's in the slot to the right and just absolutely whiffs, forcing Montgomery to have to pause, and then Fred Warner tackles him. I'm not saying it was a walk-in touchdown, but J-Mo, everybody's like, oh, J-Mo had 2 touchdowns. He did. All right, the reverse was great. The catch at the end of the game, fine. It was in traffic. It was a nice play. Jameson Williams had a ball go through his hands on that deep shot, and watch that Montgomery run. He completely whiffs. Now, Aiden Hutchinson had a bad game, folks. Chase Lucas can't down a ball at the 1-yard line. Josh Reynolds. I'm not just pointing out J-Mo's mistake, but I'm telling you, when Campbell says we missed a block on what we thought was a walk-in score on a run, go back and watch. It was Williams that struggled with he just whiffed on the block. Just absolutely whiffed. All right, Austin Mock from theathletic.com coming up next here on a Tuesday. Locked On Lions right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. And Locked On Lions today brought to you by our friends at FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Happy Super Bowl to all who celebrate from FanDuel. If you're like me, Super Bowl Sunday is all about scoring the best seat on the couch, grabbing your favorite snacks, and of course, maybe even putting down some money. I know my friends are, that is for sure. Super Bowl bets. Hey, here's what you talk about with the Super Bowl. Everything's great. All right. Sucks the Lions aren't there, but we're going to still watch it. All right. We're going to root against the 49ers. Fine. Whatever it is. Got great food. You got great people, but you want to get involved, maybe throw some money down, do it with FanDuel. FanDuel has so many ways for you to end the season with a dub or 2 or even 3. Not only can you bet on who will win Super Bowl 58, but FanDuel also has bets for which players will score a touchdown, how many points will be scored, and so much more. New customers, join today. You'll get $200 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. It's just $200 you're getting for free. It's awesome. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to sign up. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NFL. As promised, joining us today or on a Tuesday, Locked On Lions, NFL writer from theathletic.com, wrote a great piece about Dan Campbell and decision-making from Sunday. Austin Mock is our guest today. First time having him on the show. Austin, great to see you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate the honor. I know it's been the hot topic of the last 2 days. A loser in the conference championship round, kind of dominating the airwaves leading up to the Super Bowl. But glad to talk about it and debate it a little.
Yeah, no question about it. I want to get to Dan and certainly Sunday and what took place in San Francisco. The big news, though, around here today: Ben Johnson coming back. I was told weeks ago, Washington, that was their guy. They were just waiting for the Lions to lose, or obviously maybe even win the Super Bowl, and then tab Ben Johnson to be their head coach. What do you think happened?
Yeah, I don't know. There's been some speculation about the asking price being too much and whatnot, but It's one of those things where like he's a hot ticket. You come back next year in Detroit, another year, like his stock still should be high, right? And maybe a little bit unfinished business there. I don't know. Like I think there's a lot of factors that can kind of tie into it. Things fall apart at the 11th hour or whatever. But if you're a Detroit fan, you should be mighty happy about what next year could be for this franchise.
It's interesting because, like you said, asking price is seemingly is the hot button topic. Josina Anderson weeks ago said Ben Johnson wants to break the bank, and there's going to be some owners that pause. He got plenty of interviews and did some Zooms, certainly over the last few weeks. I just thought that fit now with Josh Harris in DC, that was going to be happening. Is he holding out for maybe next year when a Jeffrey Lurie or a Jerry Jones will give him double-digit millions? Do you think that's possible?
It could be. Also, it's one of those things like, do you want to tie yourself to a rookie quarterback? We know that's the shelf life in the league right now for coaches is not long. And I wonder if maybe that goes into, if the Cowboys are not to make a run again, does Mike McCarthy survive? And then like all of a sudden you're going to that Cowboys offense. That's probably a better situation than where Washington is right now, rebuilding. And on top of it, Washington has the Cowboys and the Eagles, who seem to not really be going anywhere. So a little bit of an uphill battle there for Washington. So that could be it. Success, you only have so long to this where you're the shiny new thing in the league, right? You got to pick your spot and hope you hit the right decision.
Do you think that Aaron Glenn then possibly slides in with the Commanders? What are you hearing? And certainly we know Mike McDonald from his days as the Michigan defensive coordinator. You got to figure now he's going to be Seattle's pick.
Yeah, McDonald's kind of in the hot one there that everybody's kind of leaning to. The Washington one, I feel like it's such it just seemed like it was going to be Johnson, so everybody kind of just moved on and not really looked at it. I've heard some I wonder if Belichick will slide back in. I truly think it's kind of like they're, I don't want to say like redoing it, fixing their big board, if you will, of coaching selections, but I think it's kind of they're going back to the drawing board a little bit and like, okay, let's make sure we're making a good decision here, because everything's going to be compared to, you had Ben Johnson, should you have paid him? And, if he goes on and has great success and you end up with another failed coach, then, things aren't looking great for you. So I don't know. I haven't heard much there. We'll see what comes in the next couple of days.
There have been some reports too that Ben Johnson just wants to win a Super Bowl, wants to stay. He's got 2 more years on his contract. What does that say about the culture of the Lions? Certainly Dan Campbell, that this is now 2 years in a row where the OC could have had his pick of jobs, is deciding to stay in Detroit.
Yeah, I think it speaks to like he wants to be there, right? He's obviously very, very happy. I don't know if they're gonna give him more money and kind of make that one of the highest, or if the highest paid offense coordinator in the league, maybe. But I think it shows that he's happy. He's not rushed. Like a lot of guys are rushed to get out. Let's start my own thing, and it doesn't hurt either to, hey, let's get another year. We'll probably have a good year next year. I learn another year under Dan Campbell, a guy who is, I want to say, doing it different than a lot of other coaches are right now with, the grit and just the culture and everything. Learn from him more. And, one more year in that, it's everybody's talked about how great the culture is. One more year and that's not going to hurt Ben Johnson. So he could just be another year. Let me learn some more and try again next year, because we always know there's going to be coaching slots open next year. In the NFL, there's no shortage of openings on Black Monday when the season ends.
Austin Mock with us. Read him in theathletic.com. Of course, Colton Pouncey covers the Lions, also does a great job for The Athletic. And I got to give a shout out because I am a subscriber. Andrew Marchand is coming to The Athletic from the New York Post, one of my favorite media writers. So that's a nice coup for The Athletic. All right, Austin, how should Lion fans feel? We're about 48 hours removed from this mess in San Francisco. What were your takeaways from what took place on Sunday? And look, Lions fans are ticked off and disappointed, but again, it was such a great season that it's not the sky is falling, but it's close.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things. Just, I don't want to say like just, be happy you're able to feel that way, but I think when, Lions fans have had such a, tough run that like you've never had an opportunity to feel this way. So like it's one of those things where you kind of feel like it mattered. It was so close. You finally got to feel that. It's hard to win Super Bowls. Like it's not an easy thing to do. And we saw this team and the culture that Dan Campbell's building, quick like rebuild. halfway through last year, what was it, 1-5, 1-6, whatever it started off.
Yep.
Yeah. And, it's kind of like, is it ever going to change? And since then, the back half of last year and this year has been great. So the trajectory is there. I know he made the comments coming out of the locker room about, we might not be able to have another chance, but getting Ben Johnson back is a huge pick there. It's okay to be mad. Just be like, I don't want to say be happy that you made it this far, but that is one of the things of, if you're a fan and you're mad, that means your team is close to being able to do it. Like, I don't think this was like a total fluke where you make a run with like, kind of like seemed to get the Bucks would have done that with Baker Mayfield. If they make it's like, this was our one shot type of thing, Cinderella story, like in March Madness or something. I don't think that was, I don't think that was this. I think this is something that's going to be sustainable and something that the Lions are building on. And they have some draft capital this year, and you can rebuild and try to boost where you're lacking and try again next year.
Yeah, they got that extra third-round pick, of course, from the TJ Hawkinson deal. So you're right, that's certainly a positive. All right, read your piece in The Athletic. Interesting. You go with a different angle. You're saying, and I don't want to spoil it, I want you to talk about it, but you decided that maybe some of the decisions that Dan Campbell made that everybody's pinpointing, there are others you thought were worse. Tell me about that.
Yeah, the 2 4th downs where they could have kicked 45, 48 yarders are the ones everybody talked about. But I think the bigger one before the half, you have the Niners reeling. Like, everybody wants to talk about the momentum and everything. Like, that was a huge point that you could have, 28-7 was on the table there, 3-4 yards away. I don't think like that would, from some 4th down models that are out there on what the better decision is, that was graded as the worst one of the night. But like, I don't think people talk about it, because I think it all ultimately comes down to is what the safe option is. Everybody wants to feel safe and everything like that. But like, this is not the culture that he built, like tying into what we just talked about. Like most 4th down attempts in the NFL this year, the Lions, like this is what he's built. You see the videos from like the Hard Knocks last year. He's talking about, trust me, like this is who I am. I promise you, buy in, because this is where it is. If he changes what he is, maybe that culture kind of gets a little shaky. And I think he stayed true to himself. And then on top of that, outside of a 4th down decision, the decision to run the ball, and maybe this isn't fully on Campbell, but I'm assuming he heard what play was coming in on that 3rd down with 1 minute and 5 left or whatever it was.
Right.
I think that ended up being like a 4.5% drop in win probability. They were only like 9% to win the game at that point anyway. That like killed them, because you had to do the onside kick. We know how difficult those are. So I think we just get too tied up on the decisions. I think there's other ones that are bigger. And again, a lot of times it comes out to net zero. Over the long haul, he's been making great decisions all year long, and it's going to work out. It just didn't work out. Jared Goff, if he throws it a little bit more accurately, if Reynolds makes the catch, maybe they go down and score a touchdown, and we're over here what's the narrative? Hey, Dan Campbell again with his aggressiveness on 4th down, like he's that guy, and we're talking totally different. So I think execution is probably the bigger issue here, but I think there's other decisions that probably need talked about more than just those two.
It's interesting because, and before he came on at the start of the show, I brought up the that 3rd down run to Montgomery where Jamison Williams just whiffs on a block. I mean, and he's been a good blocker this year. All right. He has not lived up to the hype of a 1st-round pick in terms of catches and everything else. So he had a pretty good game the other night, but just flat out whiffed. And those ones, Campbell had said last night that we thought we had a walk-in touchdown. So you're right. Aiden Hutchinson, PFF had him as it was the 2nd worst game of the year. No tackles. So everybody's talking about Campbell, but there's so many more fingers to point, I guess, or there's so many more, much more blame to go around when you look at it, don't you think?
Yeah, I mean, there was multiple drops, not even the drop on the 4th down. I think, was it the 3-and-out drive after the 4th down? They had 2 drops.
That was Reynolds again. Yep.
Right. And one would have been 1st down. So, it's just, I'll say it like, there's the old adage in baseball about like managers might, add 5 wins and they might cost the team 5 wins, but the other 150 games are up to the execution of everything. And that's kind of what it comes down to for me a lot of times is like, did you make the plays? Like they made every single play in the first half. Like it seemed like they made it was about as perfect of a half you can go. And on top of that, the 49ers missed a 48-yard kick. So just to throw it out there, like we don't talk about the kicker much. Obviously, to me, it wasn't that the Lions or Campbell had faith in their kicking game from any distance, but they made every play in the first half. The Niners made none. And then the Niners adjusted on defense. They played a little bit better in the second half. They weren't getting gashed every single play. And the Lions, they just didn't make the play. I didn't think it wasn't like the opportunities weren't there. It wasn't like the Niners totally flipped the script and shut them down or anything like that. They had opportunities. Guys were open. The scheme, Ben Johnson schemed guys open. You just, sometimes you just got to make the play. And that's what this league comes down to, is make the play and you'll probably be there. And they just didn't in the second half. And you tighten the bad luck. I mean, you dropped interception. That's, again, a play that was missed. Hits off face mask, 51-yard gain. Like, crazy catch from Ayuk, right? Like, sometimes you just got to make the play to hope that bad luck doesn't overswing you or overtake you. But ultimately, you don't make the plays on offense. They couldn't get a stop on defense in the second half. That's pretty much your game, more so than the decisions. I don't think the decisions swung things that dramatically. I just think the Niners played the better second half, and that's ultimately – and a lot of things went wrong for the Lions on top of that.
More with Austin coming up next. I want to ask him about next season, the division, and certainly get his pick for the Super Bowl as well early on. We'll do that coming up next right here on Locked On Lions. And Locked On Lions today brought to you by our friends at eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and leave it level it up to peak performance, from superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for with our friends at eBay Motors. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or you'll get your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that dub. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. Austin Mock is with us. Read him at theathletic.com. Does a great job covering the NFL. Wrote a great piece about Dan Campbell and the Lions in terms of the decision-making. Check that out at The Athletic. Real fast, Austin, if the Lions would have won that game, did you like their chances against Kansas City? And now that we have the matchup, what do you think?
I think it would have been similar to the 49ers game. I think there's kind of sizable underdog. But again, like, I don't want to say like they thrive in that role, but their offense, Ben Johnson schemed open guys all night in the run game and everything. They punched. Like, obviously, they game planned very well because they punched the Niners right in the mouth. I think you could have saw something similarly to that type of game plan, but I probably would have leaned Chiefs there. Maybe like a 4-ish point favorite in that game. Somewhere around that range, which I think is pretty fair. But Niners, I have a game as like pretty much a slight lean towards the Niners. I think my model makes it like 51% Niners win. But man. It's 2 games in a row. Patrick Mahomes is an underdog. Like, it's just hard to go against that guy when him and Reed are clicking. It's kind of like what the first half of the Lions were like. They did that to the Ravens in the first half. It really, like, Kelsey went off and they're really dynamic, and Spagnuolo has that defense playing. So I'm probably going to lean Kansas City just because I'm going to lean into a little bit of the Mahomes is, I think, just a bigger X factor than Purdy. And I do have a little bit of worries with Purdy in this offense against like good defenses. They haven't been all that great this year. They've they crush bad ones. But yeah, so right now I'm probably going to be picking Kansas City. It's hard to go against Mahomes and Reed. They've been there. They know what they're doing. They're just awesome.
So you mentioned it before, Lions can get back. Dan Campbell made a comment after the game about, hey, we might not. He still thinks they will, but you just never know. You look at next season, you look at some needs for the Lions, number one, and number two, it appears the division is going to be better than it was this past season now with the resurgence of Jordan Love, don't you think?
Yeah, that's probably the biggest thing I'm worried about is the Packers. Love finished the year, I was questioning, after the first month, 6 weeks, it was not good. It was kind of actually reminiscent to the Lions last year in a way, and that it just like wasn't clicking. I don't know what it was. And then boom, they were awesome in the second half of the year. Like one of the best, like that was an offense you did not want to face I mean, they took the Niners right to the wire, down to the wire there. So, yeah, Chicago, we'll see what their quarterback situation. I assume they're going to draft Caleb Williams, and I don't want to say start over.
They should.
But kind of, right. They should 100% go with Caleb Williams. No reason to pass up on a possible QB there. And then the Vikings are really interesting too. You know, what happens with Cousins? I saw today he wants somewhere in the range of like 45 million. Are they going to go that route? Or are they going to draft a QB? So they're kind of in flux too. So I think it's the Packers and Lions are going to be the two heavyweights at the top there, battling out for the NFC North crown next year.
You mentioned Cousins wanting 45 million. You ready to give Jared Goff 50 million here?
Whew, man, it's tough. It's actually, you know, it's one of those things where it's like, okay, if we saw him without Ben Johnson a year, could that like give us, I want to know if Jared Goff is foolproof outside of Johnson's system, because I do think Johnson's one of the best offensive minds. He's just, I don't want to say he's the guy you don't want to pay, because like obviously he put up great numbers this year. At the end of last year, he was putting up good numbers. It's just when you're committing 55 million, like it's kind of like you're stuck to that guy. And like, if he's not performing at a, you know, top 10-ish quarterback level, like it's really hard to compete, because from a cap perspective, you just don't have a lot of room. And I know you can push money down the line. It just always ends up coming back to bite you at some point. So 50 million or so, that makes me a little bit nervous, just because if we want to compare it like to Purdy, what killed the Lions? Purdy's legs. I think he had 4 scrambles before. Like Jared Goff does not have that really in his game at all. And, you know, it's just, is he a good enough, like dynamic passer to get there? I don't think he is, but in this system and they have a great offensive line and they have great weapons around him, he can get it done. It's just, if things start to change, and they quickly do in this league, that bill comes due very, very fast.
He had a damn good year, you know, and I think you got to pay the guy. And I know there is a small portion of the fan base that calls a local radio station and just says, "Hey, Hendon Hooker, let's go." And it's like, dude hasn't played football in 2 years. Like, are you kidding? Come on. I mean, like,
and one thing, the window, like, you never know how long your window is going to be. You know, the Chiefs window is open forever because Mahomes is amazing, right? Like Goff is not that, but the Lions have, through 3 years now, have built a pretty good roster, and now they have another chance with 4 picks in the first 3 rounds of this year's draft to build to that. So I think going away from Goff is the wrong decision, but it's one of those things that I don't like. You might pay for this in 5 years or something, where, you know, you're kind of limited on how long the window is open. But when the window's open, you got to go for it. And I think they did that last year by drafting, you know, running back and a linebacker in the first round. Like they didn't care about the positional value, the long term. They were like, hey, we think we can win now. They got the NFC Championship game. We'll see what they do. They're probably the most interesting draft team, like, that isn't picking a quarterback for me, because they can really build out. You know, you get another Brian Branch type to help out that secondary, because I think that's where their biggest issues are right now. And all of a sudden, you know, the NFC is not that deep. And so you got those teams at the top. I think they can compete with the Eagles and the Cowboys. And obviously we just saw them take the Niners down to the wire, so they can do it.
Yeah, I would think corner. I would think edge, opposite of Hutchinson, have got to be 2 needs. But again, like you said, if Brad Holmes thinks there's a receiver at 29 that he's in love with, that's what he's going to do. He doesn't care what we think, you know.
They're picking the best. It seems like, we'll see if they do it again. Like, maybe it's something you can't do every year, but like, the window's open. If they have a player that they think is great, they're going to do it. You see the videos of them in the draft room, like, going nuts when the pick before him is made. Like, we got our guy. That's they'll pick him. So they'll be interesting to watch.
Austin, great to chat with you. Thanks so much for the time. I really enjoyed the piece in The Athletic, and we'll talk soon.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Austin Mock with us from theathletic.com here on a Tuesday edition of Locked On Lions.